Hello, people of the internet. So, I watched all the Kung Fu Panda movies, because I realized, well, I haven't seen all of them. The only one I saw before I watched them all was the first movie and parts of the second. So, I watched all of them, and when I got to 4, I began to realize why I kept seeing so many videos talking about how bad Kung Fu Panda 4 was. It seriously was like they took every element that you would that you liked in the first 3 films and got rid of it. So, I'm going to go ahead and explain exactly why Kung Fu Panda 4 is not good. One thing I want to point out though is I don't consider it that bad. Like, it's not horrible, but like it depends on how you think about it. Like, the reasons I like the film weren't present in Kung Fu Panda 4, but like the reason I like the Kung Fu Panda films that came before weren't in Kung Fu Panda 4. But there were still elements that I liked in the film, you know? I still felt Jack Black was pretty cool in the film, but I mean, name a film where he isn't cool in the film that he's in, but uh my main point is just it's not like a horrible movie. It's just it's mm, it's mm. Well, I should just get into the movie now. So, I'll start with my reaction to the plot synopsis actually. So, when reading the plot synopsis, and the reason I'm going to bring this up is because I had a reaction to it in you know, as in an emotional one, not like I got sick. I'm not allergic to plot synopses. Um, but what I mean, so I read it and it was like Poe is trying to pick a successor as the Dragon Warrior. And I was thinking to myself, when did that become part of the plot? He was never supposed to choose a successor. That was never a part of the thing. I get that Oogway had his staff and gave it to Poe, but that wasn't because that was a thing passed down from Dragon Warrior to Dragon Warrior. Oogway got it in the spirit realm, and when Poe, after killing Kai, visited the spirit realm, Oogway gave it to him as a gift. Basically saying, you have essentially reached my level in skill and wisdom. Here you go. Well, maybe not wisdom, but definitely skill. So, but the thing is the staff was never, like, part of being the Dragon Warrior, because if it was part of being the Dragon Warrior, then Oogway would have been the Dragon Warrior before Poe. You know, the Dragon Warrior isn't a thing that's passed down from generation to generation. It was a singular person who was meant to protect the Valley of Peace. You know? It wasn't a thing to be passed down. If it was a thing to be passed down, why was Poe the first Dragon Warrior? Why wasn't there Dragon Warriors before him? You know? I figured that the Dragon Warrior was a warrior that was prophesied to come and do stuff, and then that was it. He was going to do those things, and then he'd be done and maybe be known as the best Kung Fu master or whatever. Which makes a lot of sense when you think of the fact that the spirit realm exists in the Kung Fu Panda universe. So even if he dies, he can still come back, or if he can't, he at least can be accessed. Like, people can go to him for wisdom, not that they'd get much, but to go to him for wisdom, and more so go to him for funny jokes and sparring matches. But, you can get some wisdom from him, it's just not going to be in parable form. You know? So, the thing is, so they then introduce, they introduce a bunch of, people who are going to be his successors. They don't introduce them, they just have them pop up for like a second. And then he does this thing where it's like in the finger chooses, and he turns his finger around and he points at himself. Which, I mean, honestly, to me, like, isn't that kind of what the first three movies were? Like, they were basically saying there's one like, that's the thing, too. The first, like, basically, and honestly, the idea of Oogway being the Dragon Warrior before Poe would have been fine. It just would be weird because it's a retcon. Like, the Dragon Warrior wasn't passed down from Oogway to Poe and then to the fox girl that I'm forgetting her name, who's played by the actress who is literally everywhere now for some reason, Aquafina. Um, and yeah, so he decides that he doesn't want to pick an heir because after he picks an heir or like a successor, he's gonna rise to the highest position of like spiritual master. You know? Yeah. So then, but he's not ready for that because he's not he's not like Oogway where he can give wise advice in a wise way. He can give good advice. He's just not going to tell it to you in like a parable form. You know, he's not going to be like, he's not going to use metaphorical language. He can just tell you things, you know? Um, so, what was the, okay, yeah. Aquafina's character, who I don't remember her name, and I don't really want to remember her name because the character just kind of ruins everything. She tries to, breaks into the Jade Palace, and I'm trying to remember why she broke in the first place. I think it was just to steal stuff. I don't think there was a specific thing. And then they have the whole vase of Screaming Warriors, or I don't remember exactly what it was called. That whole vase gag from the first and second film, I believe. I don't remember which film the second time they did it was in, but I think it was the first and second. They do that gag again, but they have Poe catch it most of the time, and then it breaks. Which is something that I do like. But one of the issues is that's the only time in the movie where they do like really impressive martial arts stuff that's like interesting. That's like cool to watch. Because like with the first three films, the martial arts is great. They immediately, oh, I should point this out too. We're not introduced to the villain yet. That's important. Not to the film, but to my criticism of it. We're not introduced to the villain yet. Kind of, actually, I should say. Because, and this is annoying. So Tai Lung appears in this mine area, and this is like the first scene in the film. I skipped it because it kind of gave me the expectation, oh, he's going to return, he's going to be the villain again, which would be kind of both annoying and cool, because it's annoying when they do that, like in, like Zool in Ghostbusters 3, it's like you couldn't make another villain, you had to bring the old one back. But it's better than nothing, especially considering Tai Lung was the most badass. And of course, that's one of the things about this movie too that I'm gonna get to as well is how they ruined. Well, they ruined all of the villains, but they ruined Tai Lung, especially because he's the one that was allowed to speak. Probably because he was the only one who they got the voice actor for. So, Chameleon is the main bad guy, and so let me go through the introductions of every villain from the first film to the fourth. In the first film, Tai Lung is introduced as being imprisoned, and imprisoned in one of the most high security prisons that exists because of how dangerous he is. That already puts him up as a threat. But actions speak louder than words. you can say whatever you want about a villain, but you have to show that they're powerful. So then they do, by having him use a singular duck feather to break out of prison and take everyone out. He takes out an entire prison and then goes on to take out the entirety of the Furious Five and Master Shifu, and, like, he probably would have beat, he pretty much would have beat Po if Po wasn't physically just capable of taking the nerve strike because of how overweight he is. So, basically, in the beginning, they establish that he's really skilled at fighting, and throughout the movie, they have him fight progressively harder and harder threats, showing that he's a big deal. He also has a personal connection to the characters, being raised by Shifu similarly to how Po was raised by Ping. In that he just discovered Tai Long and raised him. Of course, the thing is we don't get any detail about Shifu raising Tai Long other than what's necessary. So now it's time to get to the second film with Lord Xian. Lord Xian is, one thing to note is I am not Chinese, and so if I pronounce any of these wrong, I'm sorry, but also kind of just realize that I'm someone that isn't, like, I am learning another language, but it's not Chinese. It is kind of Asian? I don't know. Do you count Cebuano as an Asian language? I don't know. Would you consider Cebuano an English, or would you consider Cebuano an Asian language? O-D. That's how they would say yes or no. Or is it O-O-D? No, I think she said, yeah, that's what okay. I think Dili can be shortened to D, I think. I hope so. I'm sorry if it can't. Please, I beg of you, correct me in the comments if I said that wrong. But it was just for a joke anyway, so if I said it wrong, go ahead and don't correct me in a mean way. Not that that's going to stop anyone from doing that. But, all right. So Lord Xian gets introduced as being a peacock, and that the peacocks invented fireworks, and that Lord Xian decided to use fireworks as a weapon because, they're an explosive. Of course they could be used as a weapon. They are meant to be cool and to look at, but, like, they could also just be explosions. They can just be used as rockets. So he then takes on two really powerful, or skilled, I should say, masters, and that's one thing too, is also the division between skill and power, and that's one thing that's kind of like with skill in the first three films, but it's power in the fourth film, and I'll get to what I mean by that in a second, and if you've seen it, you might know what I mean, but, so in the second film, he loses the fight with the two masters, Master Rhino, and I don't remember the other master's name, I think he had a name, So yeah, he took on two masters and failed. So then he shot them in the face with a freaking rocket. And by that I mean a firework, of course, because that was what was introduced earlier. Of course, they're cartoon characters, so they don't die, they just get imprisoned. Now, I'm not going to criticize a cartoon for having cartoon physics. That's one of the reasons why I really love the first three films. So, the martial arts. So I should also. So then the next thing he does is it's established that he killed the entirety of Poe's people. He killed all of the pandas. Of course, we then later learn in the series that that's not true. He killed a lot of them, but some of them, were able to leave and form a village. But, they were, yeah, so then they have the second, so then he fights the five and Poe And, he's shown to not be physically skilled like Tai Lung, but the threat is that he has a freaking cannon. The threat is that he has something that they just can't take on. It's not that he's more powerful, it's not that he's physically better or more intelligent overall. It's that he has just a thing that lets him win. So in the third film, they introduced the idea of chi, which is a thing from some Chinese stuff. I don't know what spiritual stuff has chi. Maybe it's a general thing that it's in different places, but if there's a specific religion the concept of chi comes from, it would be nice if someone told me, but I don't know. It's a Chinese thing. I don't know what religion specifically. And it's basically sort of like a soul, and I say sort of because it's not completely like a soul. It's kind of like, rather than being the natural, the representation of yourself, the supernatural representation of your consciousness, it's more like an energy that emanates life, So one of the other differences is the concept of a soul can apply to either to mostly, it's either just humans or just animals that we consider smart enough to call ones that have souls. So dogs and people. But then you have chi, that applies to everyone. No matter who you are, you have chi. So it's not like a human-centric thing where it's only humans have souls, or we pick which ones do and which ones don't arbitrarily type of system where we're humans and fluffy cats and cute dogs have souls. So we can tell the kids that they'll still see their dogs in heaven and their cats in heaven. But, the ants that they stepped on, they don't go to heaven. Of course, if souls were a consistent idea, realistically, ants wouldn't have they wouldn't have an individual soul for each ant. It would just be one soul for the queen, because she mentally is just all of them simultaneously, I think. Of course, my idea of that came from reading Ender's Game with the buggers being like that, and I figured, well, it's possible that maybe that's how ants work, because they clearly are based off ants. Well, that, and I did see a picture of them in a comic book of it, and they were pretty much ants. Ender's Game is a great book. I would recommend it. I would recommend it, but I won't. I would usually recommend it, but there's reasons beyond my control that prevent me from doing so. No, I'm joking. Also, Ender is in the Dragon Squadron, I should point out, which is hilarious because, Ender Dragon. Yeah. In other words, I love Ender, man. Okay. I'm going to stop that now and get back to the point of the video. So chi, he teaches the idea of chi, which is basically the force that emanates all life, no matter how complex or how simple. Also, I get that complex kind of depends on how you define complex, but that's not my point. So he then teaches the thing about, he does it very basically healing a plant, or not healing it, or does he, I don't remember if he heals it or just makes it bloom. I think he makes it bloom. And then, oh, I should also point out that in the second film, he has this whole inner peace thing where he learns to turn a rocket around his body, and he does that a few times. So then and then in the third film, he has the concept of chi that he has to learn. And the main villain, Kai, uses chi against his enemies. He consumes, well, he doesn't really consume, he entraps the chi of every warrior he defeats. He defeats Uguay, and I'm sure he probably defeated other warriors in the spirit realm, and took their chi. He then defeated those two masters. He then defeated a bunch of other masters as well, including the Furious Five, with the exception of Tigress, and, I guess Poe? I don't know. Does he count as a member of the Five? I don't think so. Yeah, because then they'd have to change the name from Furious Five to, I don't know, uh, I'll think of a name and say it at the end, I guess, because I wanted to come up with a funny name, but I'm too dumb. Um, yeah. So, they then established that. So they established basically that Kai is powerful by having him take down two masters, and take down um Crane and Mantis, two members of the Five. Then he goes to the Jade Palace and he fights all of the people there, which means Shifu and the rest of the Five. So that would be Monkey, Tigress, Monkey, Tigress. Oh, that's wait, Monkey, Tigress. There's one more. There's one more who I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, and Snake. I don't remember her name. I know they're named after the animal, but I somehow forgot hers. Viper. That's what they call her. Yeah. So he takes down Viper, Shifu, Tigress, and um I don't need to name all three again. I'm not gonna go out of my way to remember that like I did last time. Yeah, he takes down the five. He takes down the entirety of the Five minus Tigress, and takes out Shifu. Now, because Shifu, so that immediately establishes him as a big deal. So then they also have. So then eventually, like, Poe almost gets his chi taken, and he fights, he ends up fighting and killing Kai. So did any of you notice a pattern when I was going through those plots? There was a thing he needed to learn. That's what the pattern was, in case you didn't notice. In the first film, he needed to learn how to be like the Dragon Warrior, how to become that. And in the second film, he learned inner peace. And in the third, he learned chi. Well, to control chi. He still had chi, but he learned to control it. And so in the fourth film, you might say, well, he's there to learn, like, the parable idea of, like, becoming wise. And the thing is, though, is, like, they don't really make that, like, that one of the differences, I would say, between those three things is each of the things he learned in the first three films were an integral part of him defeating the villain in question. If he didn't learn how to become the Dragon Warrior, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Tai Lung. If he didn't learn inner peace, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Lord Xian. If he did not learn how to control Qi, he would not have been able to defeat General Kai. I think he's a general. I don't know. I remember him having a title before the name Kai. If I'm wrong on him being a General Kai, then go ahead and correct me. I'm always open to be corrected because, correction is objectively a good thing. If you get mad that you find out that you're, like, because the thing is correction is you're wrong, and then you realize you're wrong and then become right because you change your opinion accordingly. That's a good thing. It still does annoy me like it does everyone else, but I'm not like, don't correct me, because, I know that it's fine. I don't get mad about it at the person. I might get annoyed because I'm like, I wish, but I'd be mad at myself. I'd be like, why didn't I know this? Not why are they pointing it out? Yeah, maybe I should be the spirit leader thing that they introduced in the fourth film, since I basically just, I don't know. Yeah. My main thing there was, so they didn't have a main thing he had to learn. And if you say the parable thing, how does that help him defeat Chameleon? That doesn't. And, of course, that's not the only problem. And I'm going to get to the other ones right now. So Well, actually, I did bring up the other thing earlier, which is that the staff was just kind of made into the Dragon Warrior thing, and the Dragon Warrior was made into a position that was passed down. So now let me go through Chameleon's introduction, because she's the villain of this film. So you might think, based off my descriptions of the introductions of the villains from the first 3 films, if you haven't seen the 4th film, and if you've seen the first 3, you would assume her introduction would be she's gonna kick some ass. So you know what she does in the introduction? They have people talk about how scary she is, and then she walks in and goes, "I'm scary? Be scared of me." It's like, we don't care. You just show that you're scary. You didn't do anything. Like, so she didn't do anything to show she was impressively skilled. Like, in Kung Fu. That's even, like, the whole point of her character. She was never able to learn Kung Fu because people criticized her for being too small, meaning her shapeshifting ability is only useful in the sense that, like, she can physically intimidate people, which is what she does all the time. In other words, her threats are entirely empty. In other words, she's like Homelander, where you'd be terrified of her if you're a pussy, but if you actually are willing to stand up and, like, point out the flaws in a person, you probably wouldn't be scared of them because their flaws are so easy to dismantle. Um, you know? It's like you're only scared of them if you can't realize all of their problems and point them out because you're not strong enough to do that. Yeah, so they actively establish her, like, they actively don't establish her as a threat. By just having her say she is a threat, that doesn't make her a threat. And I get what I said before, was that in the first film, they introduced Tai Long with the words, describing that he's a threat, having him be imprisoned. But they didn't only do that. I gave other examples as well. He defeated the Five. He defeated Shifu, and he almost defeated Po. He did pretty well against Po. So then the third film, in the fourth film, so she's, like, not shown to be skilled in any of this, right? When I first saw the fox girl, I should say, she's a gray fox, so it confuses me, a fox girl, I first thought, oh, she's probably going to be the villain, because she's shown to be physically capable of taking on the Dragon Warrior, the guy who defeated the last 3 major bad guys, and got gifted an extremely powerful staff by one of the most wise people in the series. So, yeah, that would mean, oh, she's probably the villain, because in every other film, they introduce the villain by having them kick ass. And I get that not every film is about violence, but martial arts movies are. Martial arts movies is about the cool fighting. So, you gotta have cool fighting. It's like, I like Kung Fu Panda 1 through 3 because they are martial arts films. They are there so you can not only watch the martial arts, not only to see the characters develop like you would in any other film, but also so you can see martial arts and stuff like that. It's to see cool, well choreographed fight scenes. There aren't really any really cool choreographed fight scenes, except for a few, being the ones with Tai Lung, and then the one at the end, but that one isn't even really that cool. I don't know, maybe it's just that the film soured my opinion of it, so maybe I just came into that fight scene with the notion that, oh, those films kind of, but, what I mean is, like, so I thought she would be the villain, because she was shown to be a good threat. She then gets arrested because she gets defeated by Po. And then, after being defeated by Po then talks to her about Chameleon and is like, where's Chameleon? Because he hears that Tai Lung has returned. And then she ends up bringing up the fact that it's not actually Tai Lung, it's Chameleon disguised as Tai Lung. So, her plan is to steal people's Kung Fu. Now, if your response to that is to just say, what? Then I think that, I'm glad I want to meet you because we're on the same page on this and I want to talk to you about how much this movie sucks. Because that was exactly what I thought was, what? The first 3 films is all about Poe learning Kung Fu. Like, he learns it. He has to learn it. It's not a thing he can just take. He has to get taught it. That's the whole point. Shifu brings up that people like Oogway learned the skills that they did through thousands of years of living. Poe, yeah, he learned it faster than everyone else, but he still had to learn it like everyone else. He just is a fast learner. That, and he was in situations that coincidentally made him need to learn these things. He needed to learn to be the dragon warrior so he could defeat Tai Lung. He needed to learn inner peace so he could move the rockets away from himself. He needed to learn chi so he could kick the shit out of Kai, So, so you might think, oh, maybe that means it's chi related. Maybe it's not stealing the Kung Fu. Maybe it's using the chi to steal the Kung Fu. Well, first of all, the word chi, at least, well, the chi is mentioned, but only once to be look, it still exists, but it's not in a way that's but they never say that that's what she's doing. They never say she's using chi to steal their Kung Fu. And if something's not established, it's perfectly fine to be against, to point out that doesn't make any sense. So it's inconsistent with the films that came before. You can't just steal that from people. That's not how that works. So, so the fox lady, she's stealing a bunch of stuff, and Poe tells her to not steal stuff. They get to this city, and she's famous in the city, but she's famous as a thief. How does that make any sense? That's like Osama bin Laden, people high-fiving him and being like, yo, Osama! It's that, if you're famous as a criminal, that means you're gonna be arrested, right? And you might think, oh, well, maybe they do arrest her. Nope, kind of. They get her, and then she breaks free, immediately. Because she has this weird thing that she can just make a key out of. I don't know how that works, because keyholes are shaped differently. It's not just the same keyhole. And if she was able to model a key exactly like the hole they have on the cages, then why wouldn't they change the shape of the lock so it wouldn't work anymore? What? Why would they keep it the same shape? So she keeps stealing stuff, and yeah, so she's famous as a thief, and she takes Poe to this underground area, where they introduce the how in movies there's always a group, a triplet where it's triplets where they're all really cute, but then they also kill people. They're also some weird crazy shit. It's they have 3 bunnies that are that. You know? And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm realizing that it basically is Raya the Last Dragon. And I already felt Raya was a bit, I thought it was okay, but I felt like it was too much like a video game where they were going from place to place to get a thing, which is, and because getting to each place wasn't a big deal, they just got to each place, it felt more video game-like. But yeah, so they had that, and eventually so the thing is in that city, they don't know who Poe is. He talks about how he was taught by Oogway and by Shifu, and they do not recognize Oogway or Poe, but they recognize Shifu. That would be like not knowing Qui-Gon and Anakin, but knowing Obi-Wan. It's how do you know this one person, but you don't know their student or their master? If you really knew that much about him, wouldn't you know those things? What are the legends about Shifu? Because the legends about Shifu have to include Oogway at least, and probably would include Poe. And I say probably because, Poe is still not, like, old. He hasn't been there for that long. So I believe the idea of people not knowing about the Dragon Warrior, it being a regional thing, the Dragon Warrior being a regional thing makes sense to me. But that's one thing, too, is they go to different places and people still know about the Dragon Warrior. So, in the other films. So it's also weird to have, like, one city that's just sheltered from the concept of the Dragon Warrior while having everyone else know about it. You know? It's like North Korea. You know? Just one place where no one's allowed to know anything except for what they're supposed to. And then just everywhere else has the rest of the knowledge. Yeah. And, yeah, so they then... my nose. They also go to this bar, and I really want to apologize for, like, jumping around from thing to thing, because I don't script my videos, I just talk. So when I jump from, so if I jump from a thing to a thing, whether that's, like, from one topic to another, or from a scene that happened earlier, because I'm about to do that now, that's because I don't script these videos, and I just kind of jump to whatever I think of at the moment. So before then, they also went to a bar first, a bar where they found a sailor who could take them to the city that I talked about earlier, where people were somehow sheltered from the concepts of Oogway and the Dragon Warrior, but not from the idea of Shifu. Despite the fact that all three of those things are directly related, and one of those three things has existed for thousands of years. I don't know exactly how old Oogway is, but considering Oogway's issue with Kai was like 500 years ago, I figure he's at least lived 1,000 years, and I would assume he's probably lived more. So yeah, so they go to that bar, and she steals some stuff, and he's like, she basically cheats at a game, and when I say she, it's pretty much going to always refer to Aquafina's character, I should say, not Aquafina in general, but Aquafina's character. She cheats at a game of, I don't remember what the game is, I think it was like Mahjong or something, and she steals the money via cheating and uses it to buy a meal. So Poe is like, oh shit, I'm sorry, I'll pay you back. Of course, he doesn't say, oh shit. He's like, I'll pay you back for all the food we bought. I'm sorry that my friend stole. And then then she's like, we don't want to be paid back for the reason we're mad. We want revenge. Of course, they don't word it exactly like that. I was deliberately wording it to point out how retarded that was. But the thing is like, to me that's stupid, but I do get that there are probably people like that in the world, sadly, and they're also, it's not unrealistic, but like, it feels contrived, It's weird to like have Poe apologize like that, because that's one thing I was thinking was like, wouldn't Poe immediately apologize and fix the issue? And then he did. So, another thing as well is there was the scene where Poe gets trapped by Chameleon, and they just try to lift the cage that he's in, because it's a type of cage that he can't break through because of whatever the fuck it's made out of. So then Aquafina's character's like, we need something to like leverage or whatever. I don't remember how she words it. So then he's like, use my staff. And so then he gives her the staff, and she takes it, like, she just takes it and gives it to Chameleon. Now, the thing is they established earlier in the film that you can't take the staff. It has to be given to you in order for the power to transfer over. So she took the staff, she was given the staff by Poe, and therefore gained the power that comes with it being given. And then gave it to Chameleon, and therefore she gained the power that comes with it being given. So she then uses the staff to summon all kinds of villains from the movies, all three of them, and I figure some of them are probably from the shows too. I haven't seen the shows. I don't know whether I should. If the choreography, if people who like the movies like the shows, especially if it's for the same reasons as they like the movies, then maybe I'll watch them. If any of you are like, here's a specific Kung Fu Panda thing you should watch, I'd be happy to, because I really love the movies. So if there's a show or a short film or whatever, anything I should watch that's Kung Fu Panda related, I'd be happy to. Anything I should watch in general, because I haven't really given you. uh, I've just been kind of making videos I want to make. So if you guys have a thing you want me to make based off the videos I've made so far, movie reviews and theology, go ahead and just tell me. Yeah. So Chameleon and So Chameleon then summons Tai Lung first, because Tai Lung is the one who they got the voice actor for. So then they fight so then she has her army fight Tai Lung. And during that whole scene, my thought was everyone in that room except for Tai Lung is gonna die. Because Tai Lung broke out of a giant prison that was designed specifically to keep him in it, and that it was one of the highest security prisons ever. And it's like, he broke out of a prison like that. He's not no one's gonna live through that fight other than him. So then he does what he does best, which is kick ass. Then he goes up to Chameleon, and Chameleon just takes him down immediately. And you might think, oh, there's the martial arts stuff you're describing. Nope, she doesn't use martial arts at all. She sticks her tongue out and takes his kung fu, whatever the fuck that means, from him, which somehow makes him just immediately weak. It's like, I would have been perfectly fine if, like, all they really would have needed to do would be to have it be chi related. Just say that the chi stuff in the third film is how she's doing it, and say that instead of using it to make jade warriors, she's using it to turn into those warriors and mimic their skills. Or maybe she turns them into jade warriors and then trains with the jade warrior versions of them to learn the information. That way it's still learning like everyone else. So it still carries that, but one thing is I would say with the villains, that is a pretty common thing, is they usually just take in the Kung Fu Panda series. Tai Lung wanted to take the position of the Dragon Warrior. He didn't want to earn it, he wanted to take it. But the thing is he was very skilled, and I would argue that he was, skill-wise, like, he should have gotten the position, but morally, I wouldn't have given it, because, he's not a good person. But skill-wise, I would say he should be the Dragon Warrior. Xian wanted to take China. He wanted to conquer it with his rockets and kung fu. That is the coolest sentence I've ever said. He wanted to take China with his rockets and kung fu. And Kai wanted to take the chi of warriors who were better than him, so then he could be on their same level and get revenge against, I don't really know who, because Oogway was already dead, and he also got Oogway's chi to escape the spirit realm, so I don't even know if that counts. One other thing as well is, so I don't remember, and the reason I say I don't remember before I'm going to say this is because I want to make sure that you guys know that if I'm wrong about this, I'm sorry. But I don't remember Oogway's staff, well, not Oogway's staff, but the Dragon Warrior staff, I guess I could call it, because it's now directly tied to being the Dragon Warrior for some reason. The Dragon Warrior staff opening the spirit realm is not a thing that was established. What it was the skadoosh thing. He grabs the whooshy finger hold, and then, that takes you to the spirit realm. It works on everyone except for spirits, which is kind of ironic, but it works for everyone except for spirits, which is one of the things with Kai. So Po had to grab Kai and take himself to the spirit realm while touching Kai to take Kai there, because he couldn't just banish Kai. Well, again, I guess, because that would have been a second time. So one of the things is the staff was never established to do that. It was tied to the spirit realm. Oogway had it in the spirit realm. And the thing is, too, is I figure the yin and yang symbol being on the staff and being such an integral part to Poe's relationship to the idea of being the Dragon Warrior, that makes me think that, like, the reason the Dragon Warrior is the Dragon Warrior isn't just because he's a great warrior, it's because he is colored black and white. It's exactly what I was saying before. He's prophesied to come, he's supposed to happen. He's not meant to be a generational thing, he's meant to be a one time thing that comes and then goes. So, yeah, he's not a generational thing. I am fine with him becoming a teacher. And that's why I'm fine with the third film. And by fine with, I mean I love it. All of the first three are great. The fourth one's okay. But I'm going to go through exactly why I don't like the parts that I don't like. Well, I'm going to continue doing that because I was already doing that. So during that whole fight scene with Tai Lung and the chameleons, I was thinking, why isn't Tai Lung killing them already? And why wasn't Tai Lung able to catch Chameleon's tongue and just pull her in like freaking scorpion style and then just throw her to the ground and kill her? Like, Tai Lung and Po as well were both established to have really fast reflexes, but Po in this movie seems to not have fast reflexes. Also, that's another complaint I would say, is he kind of lost his abilities for some reason. And I get that he's not physically fit, but like that was the point, was that his fatness, when it came into play, it was a positive thing. That's one of the reasons why I would say it actually is a very body positive movie if I were to recommend it to people. But one thing I will point out about body positivity before I continue is I will say that, like, don't get mad if you get overweight and have problems because you're overweight. Like, if you're okay with dealing with those problems, great, but don't complain about them because you caused them on yourself. Unless you're trying to fix them, then, it's complain about them all you want because you are trying to fix them. You're trying to fix it. Like, I wouldn't complain that I can't breathe very well because I smoke. Well, I vape, but close enough. I'm not going to complain that I can't breathe very well because I vape, and I'm not going to complain that I like that I don't smell good because I don't shower very often. I do shower sometimes, but only when I feel like it. Because I'm doing those things to myself. The consequences are caused by me. Sorry for that tangent. I'm autistic. You want to see? Look, here's a random ass tangent. Autism, yay. Yeah, that's an example of what I brought up earlier. And also, this take is going to be, this is going to be the version I upload, I think. So, this will be as long as that other one I said I would upload if you guys want. But I should get back to the movie. So, Po then fights the Fox Lady because the Fox Lady, after betraying Po, she immediately regrets it. And I'm thinking, like, why? Why did she immediately regret it? Why does she care about Po? The only thing that he's done has been in her way. You also have the fact that Chameleon's plan being to take the staff. Like, if that was her plan from the beginning, it's a very weird plan and very convoluted. And I would say that it definitely shouldn't be like that it definitely, I wouldn't say that, it's not like a Palpatine long plan where it's like, where you can tell that there are certain elements that weren't always planned, but were like taken into account when they did happen. Like Vader, for example, Palpatine's plan to gain power started in episode 1. He didn't have Anakin in mind, of course, and then the moment Anakin came, and he realized Anakin was easy to manipulate and used that to his advantage, his plan adapted. But they just established that Chameleon just planned that instead of like, and it's like, how did that get planned? That would, I guess, explain some of it, but to me it's just weird. It doesn't seem like a thing that was intended from the beginning. It seems like a thing that Chameleon just said, I planned it, so then she could be like, whoa, she's smart. So she regrets betraying, or Awkwafina's character regrets betraying Po, and so tries to stop him from fighting Chameleon because he knows Chameleon will kill him. Despite the fact that he's taken on threats that actually know Kung Fu and beaten them. And she doesn't know any of this and openly admits it. She says that she was refused to Kung Fu places because she's too small. And I would like to introduce her to Mantis because I don't know what the fuck is wrong with her. Why was she kicked out because she's small? Because Mantis would have been kicked out by that logic. He wouldn't have been kicked out. He would have been laughed out because he's way smaller than she is. It's almost as if size doesn't matter in a fight, because it doesn't. You need to just know how to use the weight of your opponent and the body type, weight, and fighting style of your opponent against them. Of course, it is about strength somewhat, but it's not entirely about strength. And if you know how to compensate for a lack of strength, that's fine. You know, you don't need strength if you can compensate for a lack thereof. You know? So keep in mind, I've never been in a fight before. Well, I mean, I was in one fight, but that was just me getting punched in the stomach like 6 times, and then I just cried in pain. So this is just me assuming based off of the fact that I did take a little bit of a karate class with my uncle, and you know, he's a 10 class or type 10 black belt or whatever it's called. He's the best type of black belt that exists. He had to travel actually to a lot of different countries to get that because he's the only one in this country that has that, I've heard. I don't know if that's true or if it's just a thing that my family told me to make him sound cooler. But, you know, it doesn't matter how cool he sounds. What matters is how cool he is. So yeah, that's what I was saying before. Actions speak louder than words. So, but so yeah. But yeah, that doesn't mean, just because I've never been in a fight doesn't mean I can't understand how fighting works. Like, logically, like how you think about fighting to fight well. In the same way that, like, just because I'm a Satanist, that doesn't mean I can't want to understand religion and get how religious people think. That's why the theology videos on my channel exist, because I want to understand religious people better. Of course, if religious people are being dumb, I'd happily point that out, but, you know, that I still want to learn this stuff, and I still like understanding people, and I'm not going to just go up and call someone an idiot because they think differently. I'm not Alma the Younger. So, yeah. Time to get back to the actual main topic of the video. Sorry for the autism kicking in again. So Chameleon then fights, or not Chameleon. So then Aquafina's character then fights, Poe, and during that whole fight, I was thinking, use the nerve strike. That was my main thought in my head. Use the nerve strike. You know, why didn't he use the nerve strike against her? Because it's established that Oogway and Shifu knew about the nerve strike. So, like, why didn't they teach him that? And why didn't he use that against her if they did? And keep in mind that I'm sure the shows that were made in that time take place before the 4th film. So if he learns that in one of the shows, tell me, because that's a contradiction within, like, the timeline. You know, how did he learn it and then just not use it the one time when he would have been able to use it easily? Because it immobilizes the opponent. It doesn't kill them. So it would have been perfect. And he would have used it on her as well. And that's one thing, too, is Tai Lung could have used it on her. On Chameleon, I should say. He could have grabbed her tongue, as I said, but then pulled her towards himself and then nerve striked her to then immobilize her. It's that simple. So, I don't know why she gives so much of a shit about Poe. She doesn't really explain why. She just kind of does. So then you have, Chameleon, as I said before, she continues stealing things that aren't hers, including the quality of the Kung Fu Panda franchise. Well, I don't know. That kind of sounds like I'm saying she is of quality because she took it from the films. No, she sucked the quality out of the series. That's what I'm trying to say here. I just want to make sure that you know that I'm saying she sucks and not that I'm endorsing her bullshit. Yeah, so she takes villains which two of which, Lord Xian and Kai, who I mentioned earlier, the villains of the second and third film. Now, you might think, oh my god, they're returning, that's going to be so cool. You know, we get to see them fight her like Tai Lung did. Sorry, no we don't. They just immediately get the kung fu sucked out of them somehow, and then they just get put in a jail. It's like, how does that work? Why didn't they fight back like Tai Lung? Like, I get that Lord Xian isn't good at fighting, but Kai was. I get that Lord Xian wasn't good because of his kung fu. He was good because he was able to just, like, he had a freaking rocket. But, you know, Kai was good at fighting. So, and Lord Xian was still good at kung fu. He just wasn't great at it. He just wasn't impressively good at it. So he would have put up a fight, just not one that he necessarily would have won. You know? So basically, like, if they had Lord Xian go first, get defeated, and then Kai go first, or go second, and then maybe he could get defeated, and then Tai Lung kicks her ass, that would have been a better way to do it. Although I do think Kai would have realistically beat her too, I am willing to say that, like, Tai Lung is definitely, has shown to be, like, a bit more badass. I don't know what the exact difference between a spirit warrior and a physical warrior is. That actually makes me think. He's a spirit warrior. Like, if kung fu is like your mental, your spirit, like, what makes your kung fu knowledge different from your spirit if it can be physically transferred from one person to another? So, like, you know? And if so, why didn't Oogway transfer his kung fu into Po when he chose him to be the Dragon Warrior? Well, he chose him. He pointed in a direction, and Po happened to fall in that direction. But because of Oogway's Taoist philosophy, he was like, that was on purpose. That's how the natural world works. He's the Dragon Warrior now. So, yeah. So then she takes all of their kung fu somehow, the same way he did with Tai Lung, except they don't put up a fight for some reason. One other thing I wanted to point out is I was wondering if any of the villains other than Kai and Xian are from Kung Fu Panda. Are any of the other villains in that scene from, like, the shows? Because that would be a cool reference, and that's one thing too that I'll point out I like the references, they're cool, but it's kind of like the references, well, it's like to make you feel good. It's not there because not there because the movie is, like, written to, like, bring those characters back, but because they just are there. So yeah, so then he fights Po, and she turns into Po, and somehow fights Po like Po, even though she didn't take his kung fu. She didn't take, like, his kung fu essence or whatever and turn into Po. She just did. I get that you can watch someone fight and analyze their style, but she's not Taskmaster. People can do that with a superpower that gives them that ability, because you can't, like, watch someone and analyze their fighting style mid-fight. Like, I mean, you probably could, but that would take more effort. Like, that would take a lot of effort and a lot of time that you wouldn't want to dedicate. So then he goes to Shifu. Like, after beating her, Tai Lung has this weird thing where he, like, is extremely out of character, where he's like, Shifu was right to make you the Dragon Warrior. You know, he still has a little bit of sarcasm in his voice. Like, you can tell that it's, like, but it still feels genuine. Like, you can tell that he doesn't like saying it, but it also feels genuine. So it doesn't make sense. It's out of character. Tai Lung trained his whole life to be the Dragon Warrior and was refused that position. He was so angry that he almost killed the entirety of the Furious Five and almost killed Shifu. Like, no, he wouldn't thank Po for this. No matter what Po does, Tai Lung will hate him. That's not how this works. Like, you can't just say, like, think about it. There's always, like, there are people like this in the world where you just think a person is hateable. Like, you just hate a person. Like, for example, Satan is a good example because, like, if you ask a Christian or any Abrahamic any person of an Abrahamic faith, or any person really, since Abrahamic faiths are such a big deal in on Earth, um, and you say, is Satan good or bad? Most of them will say bad. Now ask them why. Most of them will say he's the representation of evil. Well, how do you know that? How do you know that how do you know that he is bad? If you go through his actions, he is like, he is clearly, if not good, at least good enough to not be considered like hate worthy. Um, but that's something too, is I don't look for excuses for characters' actions, though. So if you show me a religious text where he does something that's just objectively bad, I'd be happy to say, okay, that's fine with me, because he doesn't exist. But, my main point is just his actions in religious texts, the Quran, the Bible, the Book of Mormon. None of them are really that bad. Yeah. Although the idea of him being the personification of evil is more so in the Book of Mormon than anything else. Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is people just blindly hate the idea of Satan. And what I mean by that is, and that's similar to what I'm trying to analogize here. Tai Lung blindly hates Poe. Tai Lung blindly hates Poe. He's like, Poe sucks no matter what. And he has valid reason to. He was trained by Shifu for a very long period of time. And he didn't become the Dragon Warrior. Instead, a fat panda who happened to land in front of the guy who decided, while deciding, became the Dragon Warrior. It's very similar to Tigress, and that is on purpose. By the way, I'm not going to say that is on purpose, because they directly show Tigress training as a young girl after establishing that Tai Lung, after showing off that about Tai Lung being a bad guy. So Tai Lung would never, ever say what he says in the fourth movie. So not only is Tai Lung extremely out of character, but Lord Xian and Kai don't even have characters. They just aren't there. They physically are present, but they don't do anything or say anything. They don't even fight back. Heck, that would have been an easy way to just put martial arts in the film. You just have her fight the three villains of the past three films, so then you don't have to write more fighting into the film. Because that's one of the issues with the film, I would say, is that there's not enough martial arts stuff in it. Keep in mind that, one, that's kind of subjective, how much is enough, and second of all, like, it's possible that maybe there is a pretty good amount. The thing is I might have been paying a bit more attention to, like what was going on in the film to really count, like, how many martial arts scenes there were. And, films are about character, plot and, action are there to make the character better, not, it's like, it's like, you don't usually eat a spoonful of sugar. You eat sugar on, and you put sugar on a strawberry first, yeah. You don't take it individually, you take it with another thing. Although eating spoonfuls of sugar can be fun. Yeah. I kind of forgot what I was analogizing with the strawberry thing, but I'm sure you guys remember, because you guys didn't have a brain hemorrhage when you were born, so I'm pretty sure you guys won't have the same memory problems I do. Yeah. So that's extremely out of character. So then, after they return to the spirit realm, Poe then, so Poe, when choosing a successor, he chooses Aquafina's character. So here's my complaint with that. Why? She is literally only shown that she steals from people, and that she has a bit of a twisted morality because, she's grown up raised by a dick. Oh, I should also say Chameleon raised her. That's one thing, too. She was picked up by someone and raised, and that person happened to be Chameleon. That's why she portrayed Poe for Chameleon. I should have said that earlier, but as I said before, I'm saying these things as I think of them. So, sorry for being amateur. But I don't really care. I care about what I'm saying, not like how the videos are. If you can't listen to what I'm saying, then I guess that's your fault. Or my fault, but if it's my fault, then I'll deal with the consequences, as I said before, with the whole weird stuff, that my tangent about fat people. Yeah. So, yeah. Like, why? She's only shown herself to be, like, a robber, and then so she trains with the Furious Five. And you might think, oh, it's probably like in the first film, where she gets her ass kicked by all of the training equipment. No, instead, she messes up in little small ways, but she generally, overall, does pretty well. And I'm not complaining that she's good at fighting, I'm just complaining that she's just been introduced and basically been put in this big, huge position. Like, without earning it. They're just like, you're now in this position. And it's weird. Like, why does she get to be the next Dragon Warrior? She just showed up. You know? And why does she get to be so good with the equipment when Poe was so bad with the equipment? When she does the, like, bouncy thing, the, like, Boppo type thing, and she punches it, instead of it, like, going back into her face, it goes back into Poe's face somehow, despite she should realistically be the one in front of it if she's punching it. Like, if you properly teach form, like, she would probably be more so in front of it, right? My main point is just, like, she's a Mary Sue, I would say. You know? And, and, and kind of, like, I guess it depends on, like, struggles. Like, if you consider, she does have the whole orphan thing, but it feels kind of like with Rey, where the struggle is, like, not a real thing. It's just there to make her seem less like a Mary Sue. It's not actually a big deal. Yeah. Kung Fu Panda 4 is not good. I would, if you are a fan of the first 3 films for the martial arts and for the character development, and for the aspect of, like, the wisdom of, like, having to learn information that's key to defeating the villain, like, and also the wise words said by the many characters, like, then don't watch the 4th film. Now, if you just want to see it, like, if you want to watch it, like, do it, like, I don't think it's bad where I would actively recommend not watching it, but I do think it's not good enough to recommend. Like, I wouldn't say you should watch it, I would just say you can if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. And maybe watching it would be good, because considering the way I made this video where I just brought up stuff every time I thought of it, like, maybe watching the movie either before or after this video, so you can just have more context. That way, yeah. So this video is way too long, and I'm sorry for having the little tangents that I had, but that's how autism works. So, see ya.